I set 12 places at my table that Thanksgiving morning. By midnight, I was still sitting at the 13th. My name is Margaret, and I'm 73 years old. For 47 years, Thanksgiving was our sacred day. The day my house overflowed, with laughter, arguments, and the chaos that only comes when 3 generations squeeze around one table. I still have my mother's handwritten recipe cards, yellowed with age and splattered with decades of love. The turkey had to be 22 pounds, never smaller. My late husband Frank used to say my stuffing was worth driving from 3 states over. Little Emma, my granddaughter, would sneak pieces of pie crust while I rolled the dough, getting flour all over her blonde pigtails and gap-toothed grin. Growing up, we didn't have much money. My mother, God rest her soul, would start saving for Thanksgiving in August, putting away nickels and dimes in an old coffee can. She'd polish her wedding china until it gleamed like moonlight, even though it had chips and cracks from years of use. "Margaret," she'd tell me, stirring gravy with her wooden spoon, "a meal made with love feeds more than just the belly. It feeds the soul." When Frank and I got married in 1972, I was 19 and scared to death of disappointing his mother. She was a formidable woman, German through and through, who could make a pot roast that would make grown men weep. The first Thanksgiving I cooked for his family, I burned the rolls and oversalted the potatoes. Frank's mother took one look at my tear-stained face and said, "Child, the only way to learn is to fail. Try again tomorrow." We had leftover turkey sandwiches the next day, and they tasted like victory. Frank died 3 years ago, sudden heart attack while he was reading the morning paper. For 2 Thanksgivings after that, the kids still came. David would carve the turkey the way his father taught him, and Sarah would tell stories about her medical school disasters to fill the silence. But last year they both had obligations. David had to work late on a project. Sarah was pulling double shifts at the hospital. I ate alone, telling myself it was just 1 year, just an exception. This year was going to be different. This year was going to be perfect. David, my 45-year-old son, promised he'd drive down from Seattle with Emma and her 2 kids. "Wouldn't miss it for the world, Mom," he'd said over the phone last week, his voice warm like when he was 8 years old asking for extra mashed potatoes. "Emma's been asking about your sweet potato casserole for months." Sarah, my 42-year-old daughter, swore she'd take time off from her medical residency in Chicago. "Mom, I need your green bean casserole in my life." She'd laugh during our FaceTime call, her tired eyes lighting up for the first time in months. "I've been dreaming about your cornbread stuffing. They don't make food like that in hospital. Cafeterias." I woke up at 5:30, just like I had every Thanksgiving since 1976. Because some traditions, the ones that matter, are worth losing sleep over. I put on my favorite apron, the one with tiny turkeys printed all over it that Sarah gave me for Mother's Day 15 years ago. The fabric was faded now, soft from countless washings, but it still smelled faintly of cinnamon and sage from all the meals it had witnessed. I started with the turkey, rubbing herbs under the skin the way my mother taught me. Then came the cranberry. Sauce from scratch? None of that canned nonsense in my house. I peeled 20 pounds of potatoes, my arthritis protesting with every turn of the peeler. But I didn't mind. Each potato was a prayer, each stir of the gravy a meditation on the family that would soon fill these empty rooms with noise and life. The pies came next. Pumpkin, apple, and pecan, because Emma's youngest, little Tommy, was allergic to pumpkin, but loved apple, and David's new girlfriend supposedly had a thing for pecan. I'd never met her, but I made her a pie anyway. That's what mothers do. I spent 4 hours that morning turning my house into the kind of place Norman Rockwell would paint. Every detail perfect. Every dish made with 50 years of practice and enough love to feed an army. I hummed old songs while I worked. Moon River and The Way You Look Tonight. The same songs Frank used to sing while he helped me set the table. By noon, the house smelled like heaven. I'd polished the silver, pressed the cloth napkins, and arranged autumn, leaves I'd collected from the backyard, into a centerpiece that would have made Martha Stewart proud. I even brought out the good crystal, the glasses Frank and I got for our wedding that I only used twice a year. Thanksgiving and Christmas. At 11 o'clock, I went upstairs to get dressed. I chose my navy blue dress with the tiny pearl buttons, the one Frank always said brought out my eyes. I still remember the day he bought it for me, our 25th anniversary. "Every queen needs a royal dress," he'd said, spinning me around the bedroom like we were teenagers again. I did my hair carefully, the way I used to for church on Sundays when Frank was alive. A little lipstick, a touch of the perfume Sarah brought. Me from Paris during her semester abroad. I wanted to look nice for them. I wanted them to see that their mother, their grandmother, was still someone worth visiting. By 2 o'clock, everything was ready. The turkey was golden brown and glistening. The mashed potatoes looked like snow-capped mountains, and the house smelled like every happy memory I'd ever made in this kitchen. I checked my phone. No messages. I smoothed my best dress, the navy, blue one with tiny pearl buttons that Frank always said brought out my eyes. They should be here soon, I told myself. Traffic from Seattle can be murder on holidays. I lit the candles and adjusted napkins that didn't need adjusting. 2:45 became 3:15. David was always terrible with time. I whispered to my cat, Whiskers. Maybe they stopped for gas. Or maybe Emma got carsick again. You know how she gets on long drives. By 3:30, I was peering through the living room curtains, watching for familiar cars. I picked up my phone to call David, then hesitated. They'll call when they're close. They always do. 4:15 came and went. I covered the turkey with foil, turned the oven to warm. Just temporary, I told myself. They'll be here soon, and we'll reheat everything, and it will be perfect. I sat at the head of the table, hands folded, trying to look casual. The traffic must be absolutely horrible, I said to the empty room. Poor Sarah probably got held up at the hospital. You know how those residents work. 24 hours straight sometimes. By 5 o'clock, the golden hour Frank used to call it, when the light through our windows made everything look magical. But magic requires an audience, and I was performing for empty chairs. My phone buzzed. I lunged for it like a lifeline. David! Oh. It was spam. Congratulations! You've won a cruise. I declined the call, my voice cracking as I whispered, Spam! 6:30 arrived like a death sentence. I finally dialed David's number with shaking hands. Hi, David, it's Mom. I was just wondering, are you still planning to make it for dinner? The turkey's ready whenever you are. Voicemail. My voice grew more strained. Just call me back when you get this, okay? Love you. I immediately dialed Sarah. Straight to voicemail again. Sarah, honey, it's Mom. I know you're busy, but could you just text me? Let me know, if you're okay? Dinner's ready, and I'm just worried about you. 7:45. The sun was setting, and I realized I'd been sitting in the dark for an hour. Funny how darkness creeps in when you're not paying attention. First the corners of the room, then everything else. I turned on one small lamp, creating a pool of yellow light around my chair. Maybe there was an accident, I said to Whiskers. Maybe their phones died. Maybe. But I stopped mid-sentence, the reality finally hitting me. Deep down, in the place where mothers keep their worst fears, I already knew. They weren't coming. They had never planned to come. By 9 o'clock, the candles had burned down to stubs, wax pooling on my grandmother's china plates. I finally understood what silence really sounds like. It's not the absence of noise. It's the presence of abandonment. It's the sound of being forgotten by the people who used to need you most. I walked through my house then, really looked at it for the first time in hours. Every surface gleamed. Every dish was perfect. The dining room looked like something from a magazine, if magazines featured tables set for ghosts. I went to the kitchen and began the slow process of putting everything away. Turkey in containers for soup that no one would share. Mashed potatoes that would sit in my refrigerator until they spoiled. Green bean casserole that would remind me of this failure every time I opened the fridge. As I scraped plates that had never been touched, I found myself talking to Frank's picture on the mantel. Well, Frank, I guess this is what happens when you raise your children to be too independent. They forget where they came from. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't their independence that hurt. It was their indifference. I stood slowly and walked to each place setting, removing the plates one by one. 47 years. I whispered. 47 years I cooked this meal. I blew out each candle, the room growing darker with each breath, until only the street light outside provided any illumination. In that darkness, I felt older than my 73 years. I felt ancient, forgotten, like a relic from a time when family meant something different, when promises were kept, when showing up mattered. At 11:30 that night, I sat on the edge of my bed, still in my wrinkled navy dress, surrounded by photo albums. I spent 3 hours looking through 50 years of photographs. David's chubby fingers reaching for birthday cake. Sarah in her cap and gown, beaming. Thanksgiving tables so crowded we needed folding chairs from the basement. There was one photo that stopped me cold. Last Christmas, the last time we were all together. David looked distracted, checking his phone, while Emma opened presents. Sarah kept yawning, exhausted from her shifts. Even then I could see it starting, the slow drift away from family, toward their own busy, important lives. I picked up a photo of Frank and me carving turkey, both of us laughing at some joke I couldn't remember. We looked so young, so sure, that our family would always gather around our table. Frank, what did I do wrong? How did I become someone they could just forget? Was I too available? Too willing to always be here? The house creaked around me, settling into the night. I'd lived here for 38 years, raised my children in these rooms, buried my husband from this front door. But tonight, it felt like a mausoleum, a shrine to a family that no longer existed. A tear rolled down my cheek, but then something shifted inside me. A spark of something harder, something I hadn't felt in years. Anger. Not the hot, explosive kind, but the cold, clear fury of someone who'd been taken for granted for too long. I stood and walked to Frank's dresser, where I'd kept his cologne all these years. I opened the bottle and breathed in the scent that used to mean safety, that used to mean I was loved. Frank, I whispered. I think I've been waiting for permission to live my own life. But you're gone, and they've moved on, and I'm still here, sitting there at midnight, surrounded by ghosts of happier times. I had a revelation that shook me, to my core. I had spent 50 years defining myself by how much other people needed me. I was David's mother, Sarah's mother, Frank's wife, Emma's grandmother. But who was Margaret? Who was I when I wasn't taking care of someone else? I walked to my vanity mirror, looking at my reflection in the dim light. My hair was mussed from lying on the bed, my makeup smudged from tears, my dress wrinkled from a day of waiting. But my eyes looked different, clearer, determined. Margaret Elizabeth Chen, you are 73 years old. You survived. Growing up poor, putting 2 kids through college, losing the love of your life to cancer, and running this house for half a century. You can damn well survive this too. I began unbuttoning my dress, my movements becoming more decisive with each button. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I would not waste whatever years I had left waiting for scraps of attention from people who had moved on. If they didn't need me, fine. I would find people who did. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in decades. I made plans that had nothing to do with being someone's mother or grandmother or caretaker. I sat at my kitchen table with a notebook, coffee, and my laptop. I typed into Google, "Volunteer opportunity seniors near me." My hands were shaking as I read aloud. St. Mary's Community Kitchen needs volunteers to serve meals to homeless families. Riverside Senior Center looking for activity coordinators. Literacy program needs reading tutors. My finger hovered over St. Mary's phone number. My hands were shaking, not from sadness this time, but from something I hadn't felt in years. Excitement. 3 weeks later, I started volunteering at St. Mary's Community Kitchen. I wore a bright red apron over my comfortable cream sweater, ladling soup with genuine warmth. The first day, my hands shook so badly I could barely hold the ladle. I hadn't talked to strangers in months, hadn't been needed by anyone except my cat. It turns out there are a lot of people in this world who understand what it means to be invisible, to be overlooked, to wonder if anyone would notice if you disappeared. There was Maria, a single mother of 3 who worked 2 jobs but still couldn't afford groceries. There was Robert, a veteran with PTSD who lived in his car because crowds made him panic. There was Jenny, the teenage girl with tired eyes and a worn denim jacket who reminded me so much of Sarah at that age. I handed Jenny a bowl of soup on my 2nd week. "Thank you so much, ma'am. This smells incredible," she said. "You're very welcome, sweetheart. There's fresh cornbread and apple butter if you want some. And take some for later. I insist." Jenny smiled then. The first genuine smile I'd seen from anyone in months, including myself. Working there taught me something I'd forgotten in all my years of cooking for family who took it for granted. Food is love made visible. When you feed someone who's truly hungry, they don't just taste the seasonings or notice if the rolls are burned. They taste the care, the time, the fact that someone thought they were worth feeding. By January, I was leading book discussions at Riverside Senior Center. I wore my purple cardigan and felt more animated and engaged than I had in years. There was something magical about discussing Jane Austen with people who had lived long enough to understand the difference between love and infatuation, between duty and choice. So what did everyone think about the ending? "Dorothy, you had some strong opinions," I said during our discussion of Sense and Sensibility. Dorothy, 82 with silver curls and a bright pink blouse, laughed. "I thought it was terrible. After everything she went through, she just forgives him. Just like that? But isn't that what makes us human?" I said, feeling truly alive for the first time in years. Our capacity to forgive, even when we're not sure it's deserved? Maybe especially then. The room erupted in friendly debate. Voices overlapping, hands gesturing, minds fully engaged. I looked around the circle of faces, weathered and lined with experience, and realized I'd found something I didn't even know I was looking for. I'd found my tribe. Later that week, Dorothy and I walked through the snow-covered park, both bundled in winter coats. Me in forest green, her in royal blue. We'd become inseparable. 2 widows who refused to fade quietly into irrelevance. "You know what I love about our friendship, Margaret?" Dorothy said, her breath creating little clouds in the cold air. "What's that?" We chose each other. Nobody forced us to be family because we share DNA. Nobody guilted us into caring. We just decided to love each other. That might be the purest kind of love there is. I stopped walking, touched by the simple truth of it. Dorothy, you just gave me the best gift anyone's given me in years. What's that? You reminded me that I get to choose who matters to me. For 50 years, I thought love was something that happened to me. Now I know it's something I decide to give. On January 15th, I was painting pottery at my kitchen table when my phone rang. Mom? It's David. Listen, I need to apologize about Thanksgiving. Emma came down with the flu the night before, and then work got crazy, and I meant to call, but my voice was calm, knowing. I continued painting while talking. David, it's okay. Really? You're not upset with us? Oh, I was devastated. For about 24 hours, I thought my world had ended. But then I realized something important. I can't spend whatever time I have left waiting for other people to make my life meaningful. I have to do that myself. There was a long pause. Mom, Jesus, I'm really sorry. We should have called. We should have... Honey, I'm not the same woman who sat at that table, waiting for you. She's gone. And honestly, I like who I am now much better. After another pause, David asked, Can we try again? Maybe Easter? Of course. But David, I won't be waiting. If you come, wonderful. If you don't, I'll still have a beautiful day. That's the difference now. The following Thanksgiving, my dining room looked different. The table was smaller now, set for 6 people instead of 12. I was having Dorothy and her grandson Marcus over, plus Mrs. Kim from next door and her son, and James from the soup. Kitchen? He just got his own apartment. 6 people who wanted to be here, not 12 who might show up out of obligation. The doorbell rang. Dorothy entered with Marcus, 28 and tall, wearing a brown sweater. Behind them came Mrs. Kim, 67 and Korean, wearing an elegant gray dress, with her son Peter, 35, in a navy button-down. Finally, James arrived, 45, African-American, clean-shaven, wearing his best white shirt. Something smells absolutely divine in here, Dorothy exclaimed. Grandma Dorothy wasn't kidding. You really do make the best stuffing in the city, Marcus said. Mrs. Kim smiled warmly. Margaret, you've outdone yourself. This table is beautiful, I beamed, wearing my burgundy dress that brought out my silver hair. Welcome to my table, everyone. Welcome to my family. As we all took our seats, chatting and laughing, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Pure contentment. I learned something that cold November night when I sat alone with my perfect feast. Family isn't just about blood or obligation, or shared history. Real family is about choice. It's about showing up. It's about being present when presence matters most. If you're watching this and you feel forgotten, abandoned, invisible, let me tell you something my grandmother used to say, the heart that gives love is never truly empty. Your worth isn't measured by who shows up to your table. It's measured by the love you choose to put into the world, especially when it feels like no one's watching. I raised my glass as the others did the same. To chosen family, to second chances, to the courage to start over at any age. Cheers, we all said together. Because someone is always watching. Someone always needs exactly what you have to give. And sometimes, that someone is you.